Words of Sri Aurobindo from the book Letters on Yoga Part 1 from the Collective Works of Sri Aurobindo Volume 28, page 208, topic the physical consciousness, subtopic the vital physical. Arnott Sri Aurobindo says, the physical vital is the being of small desires and greeds, etc. The vital physical is the nervous being. They are closely connected together. The vital physical governs all the small daily reactions to outward things, reactions of the nerves and the body consciousness, and the reflex reactions and sensations. It motives much of the ordinary actions of man and joins with the lower parts of the vital proper in producing lust, jealousy, anger, violence, etc. In its lowest parts, that's a vital material, it is the agent of pain, physical illness, etc. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the vital physical forces can be received from anywhere by the body, from around, below, or above. The order of the planes is in reference to each other, not in reference to the body. In reference to each other, the vital physical is below the physical mind, but above the material. But at the same time, these powers interpenetrate each other. The body energy is a manifestation of material forces supported by a vital physical energy, which is the vital energy precipitated into matter and conditioned by it. Next subtopic, the material consciousness or the body consciousness. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, by material is meant the body consciousness, the consciousness of matter, etc. Physical is a wider term. There is, for instance, a physical mind which cannot be called material, dealing with outside earthly things. A great part of the body consciousness is subconscient, and the body consciousness and the subconscient are closely bound together. The body and the physical do not coincide. The body consciousness is only part of the whole physical consciousness. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, what you describe is the material consciousness. It is mostly subconscient, but the part of it that is conscious is mechanical, inertly moved by habits or by the forces of the lower nature, always repeating the same unintelligent and unenlightened movements. It is attached to the routine and established rule of what already exists, unwilling to change, unwilling to receive the light or obey the higher force. Or if it is willing, then it is unable. Or if it is able, then it turns the action given to it by the light or the force into a new mechanical routine, and so takes out of it all soul or life. It is obscure, stupid, indolent, full of ignorance and inertia, darkness and slowness of tamas. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, it is this material consciousness into which we are seeking to bring first the higher, divine or spiritual light and power and ananda, and then the supramental truth which is the object of our yoga. But there is an obstinate, dark and inert resistance both from the material nature and from the physical consciousness of the sadhaks, of which the lower vital and material consciousness, both of them still regenerated, are the cause. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the material is the most physical grade of the physical. There is mental physical, the vital physical, the material physical. Yes, or at least the material consciousness is a separate part of the physical consciousness. Physical mind, for instance, is narrow and limited and often stupid, but not inert. Matter consciousness is, on the contrary, inert as well as largely subconscious, active only when driven by an energy, otherwise inactive and immobile. When one first falls into direct contact with this level, the feeling in the body is that of inertia and immobility, in the vital physical exhaustion or lassitude, in the physical mind, absence of prakasha or pravritti, or only the most ordinary thoughts and impulses. It took me a long time, says our Lord Sri Aurobindo, it took me a long time to get down any kind of light of power into this level. But when once it is illumined, the advantage is that the subconscious becomes conscient, and this removes a very fundamental obstacle from the sadhana. Next subtopic, the gross physical and the subtle physical. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says by the gross physical is meant the earthly and bodily physical as experienced by the outward sense mind and senses. But that is not the whole of matter. There is a subtle physical also with a subtler consciousness in it, which can, for instance, go to a distance from the body and yet feel and be aware of things in a not merely mental or vital way. As for mind and vital, they are everywhere. There is an obscure mind and life even in the cells of the body, the stones or in molecules and atoms. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the subtle physical is difficult to realize without definite experience. For example, as when light or ananda or force come into the body and one feels it working as if in the cells, yet with little attention, it becomes clear that it is not the material cells but something more subtle that feels it. There is what is called the nervous envelope surrounding the body. You are probably seeing the Sukshma and the nervous envelope in one view. The Sukshma Deha contains the Sthula Deha. Only it is not bound to itself and can contract or expand unlike the material body. Next subtopic, the physical nerves and the subtle nerves. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the physical nerves are part of the material body, but they are extended to the subtle nerves in the subtle body, and there is a connection between the two. Yes, there are nerves in the subtle body. The physical nerves have centers or plexus. The nervous being proper is part of the physical, and it starts from the physical center, the Mooladhara. The nerves are distributed all over the body, but the vital physical action is concentrated in its origin between the Mooladhara and the center just above it. The next subtopic, the sheets of the Indian tradition. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, yes, the inner being is made up of sheets. Sheets is simply a term for bodies because each is superimposed on the other and acts as a covering and can be cast off. Thus, the physical body itself is called the food sheet, and its throwing off is what is called death. You can only distinguish the different sheets either by intuition or by experience, and then you have established direct knowledge of the different sheets. Next, chapter 9, the environmental consciousness is the main topic. The subtopic, the environmental consciousness around the individual. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says everyone carries around him an environmental consciousness or atmosphere through which he is in relation with others or with the universal forces. It is through this that these forces or thoughts or feelings of others enter. The environmental is not a world, it is an individual thing. The individual is not limited to the physical body. It is only the external consciousness which feels like that. As soon as one gets over this feeling of limitation, one can feel first the inner consciousness which is connected with the body but does not belong to it. Afterwards, the planes of consciousness above the body, also a consciousness surrounding the body but part of oneself, part of the individual being through which one is in contact with the cosmic forces and with other beings. This last is what I call the environmental consciousness. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says each man has his own personal consciousness entrenched in his body and gets into touch with his surroundings only through this body and senses and the mind using the senses. Yet, all the time, the universal forces are pouring into him without his knowing it. He is aware only of thoughts and feelings, etc., that rise to the surface, and these he takes for his own. Really, they come from outside in mind, waves, vital waves, waves of feeling and sensation, etc., which take particular forms in him and rise to the surface after they have got inside. but they do not get into his body at once. He carries about with him an environmental consciousness called by theosophists the aura, into which they first enter. If you can become conscious of this environmental self of yours, then you can catch the thought, passion, suggestion, or force, illness, or whatever it may be before it enters and prevent it from entering into you. If things in you are thrown out, they often do not go to altogether, but take refuge in this environmental atmosphere, and from there they try to get in, or they go to a distance outside but linger on the outskirts, or even perhaps far off, waiting till they get an opportunity to attempt entrance. And Lord Sri Aurobindo says the environmental consciousness can become silent when there is wideness. One can become conscious of it and deal with what passes through it. A man without it would be without contact with the rest of the world. These are the words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo.